Our trip to Jordan and Petra began in Israel. We had to travel 190 kilometres north to Bet Shean to cross the border, to travel 320 kilometres south to the ancient city of Petra in Edom. On the road we came across this shepherd and his sheep feeding his flock. As we travelled further, the road ran parallel to Border Patrol Road. The fences are electrified and the Border Patrol posts can tell if they have been breached and exactly where. After crossing the border into Jordan, our first stop was at the ruins of Petra. This was the city to which many Christians fled just prior to the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. Jesus warned of this destruction in Matthew 24 and Luke 21. Petra was one of the cities known as the Decapolis in Jesus' time. It is the site of one of the earliest Christian churches. During the Roman period it was a thriving trade city, but it was destroyed in the terrible earthquake of 747 AD. These scenes were taken from the Petra rest house. There are the remains of two churches in Petra dating back to the 1st century AD. These shepherds weren't as kindly as the ones in Israel. The 360 kilometre trip to Petra was through flat scrub and desert country along the King's Highway. The entrance to Petra was barren and rocky. Our guide told us he lived here. Laurie and Glennis rode through the Sikh in one of these taxis, whilst Ian and I rode horses to the entrance of the Sikh and walked the rest of the way. Our guide walked with us as we rode past some of the cave dwellings outside the Sikh until we reached our dismount point. From here we walked the 1.5 kilometres through the narrow Sikh to Petra proper. It is easy to see why this narrow entrance to the lost city of Petra was not explored for many years. Along the side of the path was an aqueduct which carried water from storage cisterns or reservoirs inside gullies to the city. Our guide points these out to us. These collect the runoff during the rainy season and store it for use later. This section of the Sikh was paved and these taxis were returning for more customers. The colours in the rocks were beautiful, but these would easily fall if an earthquake hit.
The niches here is called the idol, because we have 6 idols on the top, the pediment and the statue of the god of rain called Baal in the middle. In the Nabatean time, it was here, and the Roman, they changed nothing. When the Byzantine came in the 5th century AD.
Besides the idol niches, there were some interesting rock formations produced by wind and water erosion.
The guy who's responsible and looking after the statue and explaining for the people used to be there in that cave. He was selling some francs, some incense, some lamps.
Here we see an elephant-shaped rock and delicate wind sculptures.
Thorns, you see the tail.
This fish sculpture was not done by the wind. The narrowest part of the Sikh is barely 2 metres wide at this point. As we came to the end of the Sikh, we were presented with this glimpse of the Treasury building. Emerging from the Sikh, the full splendour of the Treasury building carved into the living rock could be appreciated. The Treasury is more likely to be a tomb or a temple. The evidence for this is indicated by the bowl and drain chiselled out of the rock to catch the blood of the sacrifices offered there. The interior walls and ceiling of the treasury show the beautiful coloration of the rock face. Legend suggests that treasure is hidden in this sculpture. This is the treasury end of the Sikh. Petra is a city of tombs dug into the rock walls of the valley, as can be seen in this view. Here we are inside a family tomb, with many more on the opposite side of the valley. We walk to a spectacular cave house. This house was carved out of this beautiful living rock. It was also the place where Laurie fell and hurt herself and the digital camera. As she recovered, we bought a necklace from this lady. Further along the valley we stopped for a cup of tea and listened to these Nabateans singing a love song. And what song are you playing there?
Real Bedouin Silk.
Yes.
Long time ago, you know.
And what are you saying in the song? What are the words?
I say I love, you know. Or love, you know.
The Nabateans were descended from Nebaioth, the eldest son of Ishmael, the son of Abraham. Petra was their capital city and religious centre. It was also the tribal burial ground. This theatre was constructed long before the Romans entered Petra.
And there's about 5 families still living in caves around the corner here. With them.
Petra is a national park now, and the original inhabitants have been moved to a modern village on the hill. This urn tomb is one of several belonging to the Nabatean kings. In 447 AD it was converted into a church and cathedral by Bishop Jason.
They called it the Urn Temple, with a huge cave inside, long age and sandy rocks, easy to erode it. The last one is called the Palace.
The high place was used for sacrificing young boys and girls to Baal and other gods. This was the city centre. Petra was said to have had a population of 40,000. We walked down the main street, past a dried-up creek bed, and came to a ruined temple which is being rebuilt. Goats were grazing on the ruined temple, minded by their herders. Colonnades lined the street, which was well cambered to allow water to run off, but flash flooding over thousands of years has damaged the surface.
The major street, the souk.
The great temple is being reconstructed. And we paused to rest and study the carvings on the triumphal arch across the road. At the end of the street is the temple of Dusharis and a museum.
test of faith.
Test.
We took a scary donkey ride up the steep track to see the monastery.
That's right. That's what I feel. But as you know, we have no more money.
Laurie was tired from her fall, so we left her at a Bedouin cave whilst we walked on to overlook the valley beyond the monastery.
Yeah.
This is Mount Hor, the mountain where, by tradition, Aaron is said to have been buried. His death and burial is described in Numbers 20, 23 to 29. These impenetrable valleys at the back of Petra are one of the reasons why the place was so secure and lost for years.
Barbecue.
A barbecue, yeah.
Lunch there. It's nice.
It would be. How would you get there?
By the heck, when you come from the other side, see the park there?
This refreshment and trinket store was apparently unattended, but no doubt was carefully watched by someone in this cave.
The color, look at this color there. There, it's like silver color. Yeah. And beautiful color back there.
In spite of this dry climate, this lichen clings to the coloured rocks of the desert.
Can I take it all in?
Walking back past the monastery, caves and precipitous valleys, this magnificent horse trotted by. On our return, we found Laurie asleep in the Bedouin's cave. Coming down the mountain on the donkey was scarier than going up, and Laurie refused to do it, so we had to walk all the way down. She then had an argument with the donkey boy who wanted her to ride the donkey the rest of the way, but she refused.
No, I'm going to walk, thanks.
Because the carriage is about takes more than 1 hour to your carriage, and so it's.
I'm not going back on the carriage either.
No, you go in your carriage where the
No.
treasure. If you might have the donkey from the easy way from there. Back to the carriage or to the end, because here no steps. This is the step.
Near the temple of Dusharis and the restaurant was the donkey pickup point. We sat and had our lunch here before continuing our walk back to the Sikh.
Hello. Hello.
How are you?
Oh, exhausted, thanks.
One of the smaller wildlife we observed. By this time we understood how the Israelites must have felt as they journeyed through this rugged and barren country on their journey from captivity in Egypt.
Hello, we are going back. We are walking.
Not long after we left Petra to return to Amman, we encountered this flock of sheep crossing the road.
And the dog.
Well, they got a dog this time.
Yeah. Oh, look at the little. This one's having trouble. Look at that one.
About an hour's drive from Petra is Shobak Castle. This is an old Crusader castle built on a hill some distance from the modern highway. Below the castle in the valley is a village with hillside caves for tombs. It is across this terrain that Moses and the Israelites marched on their way to the Promised Land. Numbers 20:17 to 21 tells us that the Edomites would not let them use the King's Highway. We stopped on the side of the road overlooking the Dana Nature Reserve. It's about 40 kilometres from Petra. It's also an ancient north-south caravan route. This village, deserted by its original inhabitants, is being revitalised by the establishment of a permanent water supply. There is a wide variety of plant and wildlife, some of which are on the endangered species list. This was our luxury van. As we passed these stone cairns, I was reminded of the Old Testament warnings against moving these markers and the cairn of stones erected by Jacob as he and his father-in-law set boundaries between them. There were many of these as we wound our way down into the Dead Sea Valley. Here we are not very far from the sites of Sodom and Gomorrah. We paused at the turn-off to Zoar, where Lot and his daughters fled when God destroyed the cities with fire and brimstone. Further along the road we passed the potash works. Off to the right there was a burning bush. It was in such a desert country as this that Moses came upon a bush which was not consumed by the fire, and from which God called him to lead his people out of bondage in Egypt. This outcrop of rock is called Lot's wife. She is remarkably well preserved after 3,000 years. Our driver Naji nearly went to sleep whilst driving, so I made him stop at a resort for a break and coffee. This is Naji, our driver. Then we headed across country to Bet Shean, where Ian and Glenys had to leave us to return to Australia. We said goodbye and stayed on in Amman for 2 days before setting off for Egypt. It can truly be said that we have walked in the steps of the Patriarchs.